SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide: Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
WESN.
Life is full of ironies and paradoxes. And then somebody said, irony is just honesty with the volume cranked up. And one of the most ironic situations in TNT, I mean, Trinidad is not a real place. Maybe Tobago is real, but Trinidad is not a real place. There are probably ironies aplenty. But the one that I find is the easiest low-hanging fruit is police making seizures of marijuana. It is the most ironic thing ever. The whole point of decriminalizing something is trying to take the teeth out of the crime and the profits out of the criminals that do said thing. It's something that people apparently want to do. And why make it so that criminal profits can continue when, to some degree, it is potentially no more harmful than alcohol, right? Just that young people need to find the thing that is contrary to the norm, to the mainstream. So, to some extent, one would argue, the more we normalize marijuana, they'll seek something else. There's already concerns about a hard drug. I can't remember the report. I didn't speak on it directly on Talking Point, but it was making its way, I think, one of a ministry or a stakeholder which revolves to teenagers, it could have been the NPTA, was concerned about it. Because, you know, marijuana is what your parents do now. I knew back in the day, my peers were smokers. I won't necessarily say which of my peers. I didn't necessarily realize to what degree they were smokers. because, hey, it was, I assume to some extent it was, you know, part of that rebellious nature. But now maybe that's not enough anymore. But what is not enough is the fact that when we see drug bust headlines, 9 out of 10 or more is about marijuana, a substance that was technically decriminalized to a point. And I have said this before and I'll say it again. It seems as though we've decided on a situation, or we've implemented a situation that allows us to experience the worst of both worlds. Remember the second quote was, irony is just honesty with the volume cranked up. So whenever I see the irony of police making $1 million arrest, that was one of the latest ones, this morning, we discovered and seized 4 large packages of cannabis with a total weight of 103.1 kilograms with an estimated street value of $1.8 million. Why does marijuana need to have a street value? It's decriminalized, not so? Who is buying all this marijuana to excess? Irony is just the truth. Honesty with the volume cranked up. So what is the honesty? The honesty here is, it's ironic. Now maybe, it's ironic because we decriminalize it, but it's still being smuggled in. So where's the truth? What is the honest part about it that we should pay attention to? The fact that it still has an illegal value, the fact that it still retains the value to generate illegal profits, or perhaps the honesty is the fact that the police seemingly now all of a sudden, well, we could find all the marijuana in the world, but the guns and the other hard drugs, that's a whole other different story. Because while we have some citizens lamenting on the use and potential abuse of marijuana, it seems as though this has continued to be low-hanging fruit, an easy way for criminal activity to continue to be financed. So now the question we have to ask ourselves is why? Maybe the truth is in the fact that we are saddled with a political class that doesn't really understand much of anything except our local election cycles and how to appeal to their base and how to do the bare minimum in the environment. And we are expecting them, we are assuming that, oh, they're all smart people. But we constantly complain about results from decisions that we question their value and the intelligence behind those decisions, the intelligence that made those decisions, the logic and reasoning that got us here. Because every time I see, oh, well, the police seized $1 million here, $1 million there of weed, I'm left thinking, what was all of this for? Did we need some easy wins for the police to be distracted from hard drugs trafficking? Maybe that no man's land seizure. I mean, Karen always implies it's because the US sent us the intelligence that we couldn't ignore it. So then the question is, to what extent do we turn a blind eye to other things that either go through this country for the most part, or in some cases stop right here? Then the other question we have to ask ourselves is, to what extent is the weed market a significant fraction of gangs' income, to what extent is a lot of the gang war just based on that alone? And if we were serious about ending the gangs, cutting off their revenue supply, illegal revenue, wouldn't this be the obvious low-hanging fruit? Open it up if you want it to no longer be some petty crime that clogs up the courts and distracts the police from wider crimes. Obviously, of course, there's still going to need to be regulation similar to how alcohol is regulated. But it's funny how we're not limiting people to making moonshine in their house, right? We have a whole company, international company. Angostura Bitters is all over the world. We import alcohol. We have multiple brands. Supermarkets have their own alcohol section. And yet weed is just, well, we're expecting people to be responsible, to just grow a little weed and smoke a little weed and don't smoke too much and don't grow too much. Well, yeah, we could try and limit what people do in their own homes. They'll just buy it from the gangs. And the gangs will have another source of revenue. And we get what we get. Because part of the reason why crime is out of control is that the money coming from the transnational side of it is just too good, particularly from drugs. So how serious are we with regards to our society? Because right now, if we're not willing to deregulate it more and open it up more, then we might as well shut it all down and make it completely illegal. It's not stopping illicit profits. It's not stopping law breaking. It's not stopping the public, because somebody has to buy the stuff that's smuggled in or grown illegally, not so? You think one guy up in the mountains is growing fields of weed just so he could smoke himself? Might as well decriminalize it. Who thought of this? I still would like to know. On one hand, you could say, well, it was in hindsight. Hindsight is always 20/20. This was a dumb decision. All right, you tried a thing, but it seems as though there's no political will to actually fix the thing. No one wants to touch it. No one wants to see the mockery of our crime situation and our criminal justice system that weed has become. A mockery of our values and our laws that it has turned itself into. No, it's fine. And then the police, yeah, we got more weed, yay. Look at that. Every time we get $1 million in weed, an angel gains its wings, woo. No. Every time we get $1 million in weed, maybe the truth is, that's the weed that we get. There's probably several millions of weeds being brought in, smoked by our young people, and potentially it's addling the brain. So why don't we just cut that off then? Let's deal with one negative consequence at least. Because right now we have them both, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, speaking about young people, one UNC candidate is saying that the country is failing its youth, and they are. We are. We don't really have a means to stop young people from doing any kind of narcotic or controlled substance. It is what it is. Underage drinking is a thing. I didn't realize how much it was a thing until I became an adult. But you heard stories and you saw things. I mean, some of these fetes, they have an age limit, and it's not at the bottom end. I'm speaking about the top because there's so many children in it, right? Now, to what extent is alcohol being served at it? Not every student is in Form 6, and not every Form 6 student is 18 and over. Most students, they leave Form 6 at 18, I'm just saying. But are we failing our youth? Yes. A couple of years ago, one of our callers basically said, perhaps we need to give up on this generation. Now, this generation, I believe he was speaking about the generation of criminals. That is to say, young men and some women in their early 20s, late teens. But the problem is, not that I necessarily thought that there was a practical counter solution to what he proposed, and that in and of itself was an oversimplification. But the problem is, as I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, there are more and more teenagers already being involved in criminal activity, and there's even reports about primary school students dipping their toes. I'm not entirely sure to what extent. So now, I think what the candidate for Arangwa St. Joseph, Devesh Maharaj, what he may not fully understand when he said that we're failing at our youth. It's not just one generation of youth. It's multiple generations that are now at risk. And this issue runs further risk of being a perpetual cycle. And if we have no way to treat with it, as the caller from Maraval said, and again, to be fair to him, I don't necessarily have a good way to help those youths, those young men in their early to mid-20s that might be so far gone. I mean, rehabilitation in this country as a whole other kettle of fish that probably needs to be re-examined, overhauled, and needs a significant social buy-in by the population for it to work. And a cultural shift to some degree. So that's a whole other argument. The government can't just put $20 million, $100 million, $1 billion into that and solve it overnight. So what do? I have no idea. But now we're not just talking about the current criminals, or rather, we can't just assume the current criminals are limited to one narrow age range. It goes all the way down to as young as 14, potentially, for violent crime. It's feeding fresh bodies to the gangs. In a situation where I don't know if this SOE and these arrests are going to hold up, given the fact that various technical holes in the SOE have already been poked, you will forgive me for not having significant faith. I still have some hope, but this is no longer a hope of everything will work out. This rather is hope for a miracle that somehow it will work out. I mean, we're failing our young people. The education system is failing them. The whole development, social upbringing, imparting of them morals and values, having traditions to fall back on, having pride and love for one's country to cement one's set of values and principles to ensure that you don't necessarily seek to harm your fellow citizens. These are not things that are done in TNT. The national anthem is sung before events as an obligation that you just have to get past, not out of a sense of pride. But you know, no one really wants to get involved. Everything is fine, and at the end of the day, we could go away, right? That's what a lot of our best and brightest are constantly thinking. I don't want to get involved in politics. It's too dirty. You know, there's too much risk to me. Some of that risk might be overestimated. Some of it might not. And that includes a whole host of things that we might not fully understand with regards to financial safety and personal physical safety. But let me just go on a quick tangent, and I might bring this up again in the future, maybe in a little bit more detail, but to be very brief, here's one of the unspoken consequences of all of that free immigration and illegal immigration that people want to talk about going up to the States and Canada and the UK and blah, blah, blah. Because ideally, what do those countries want? People that can contribute to their society. So who do they let in? The bright people, the qualified people, the capable people. Who do we need to solve our problems? The bright people, the qualified people, the capable people. Now, if the bright people, the qualified people, the capable people slowly drain out of TNT, hence the brain drain, what will we have left? We'll have a set of substitute teachers. That's who we'll have to try to lead us out of whatever situation that caused all of those capable people to want to leave in the first place. So me might think on an individual level, oh, we want the chance to immigrate. And I'm not saying that immigration to the States is something that's evil. One could, if one was silly, spin it in a way that, oh, it's colonialism all over again. They're just draining our good people so that we are left in doldrums, subservient to them. We can never advance, blah, 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 blah. No, I won't say that. That is an excuse to point fingers at them and say it's all their fault. It's their fault for the brain drain. No, it's ours. Because we don't value ourselves. Because, listen, any day, a lot of people don't value building something from scratch. They rather use something at a lower level as a stepping stone to get to something at a higher level. Just ask Kevin Durant's ex-teammates. Those who know that reference know. And that's where the best and brightest of our young people are going to go. So we're not just failing our young people with regards to crime. Even the ones that the system actually allows to succeed, do they want to stay here in this country? Let me just give you a final example as to why that is a question that is legitimate. Apparently, the master key of the woman's prison has gone missing. It is able to open multiple gates. And it is acknowledged to potentially compromise the safety of both officers and inmates. How do you lose the master key of a prison? First of all, I am wondering what's even the wisdom of having a master key. But I guess, you know, to some extent, maybe they want a key to ensure that they could move through the prison and access and open the locks as quickly as possible for certain security reasons. But then wouldn't such a key not be just taken out of its secure location willy-nilly for no reason? How do you lose something like that? Now, I'm not going to say that it only happens in TNT, but I will say that TNT is one of those countries where things like this doesn't necessarily seem to be that beyond the norm, that, you know, outside the realm of the usual. It seems to be in line with the ridiculousness that causes the joke of Trinidad is not a real place. I'll never forget one of my classmates. He said he spent maybe a decade of his life struggling here, trying to be an IT professional. He goes abroad, and all of a sudden, success, it seemed so much easier to him. We can't even support the young people that actually make it, that actually are the poster children of the systems that we have. When they don't fail, it still fails for them. So now the question is, to what extent are we going to accept substitute teachers? Who are these substitute teachers, you ask? Well, it's very simple. Whenever you hear a politician say something, and you think, oh, that's hypocritical, and you think, oh, the irony of this person saying that. Well, let me remind you. Irony is just honesty with the volume cranked up. So now the question we have to ask ourselves is, whenever politicians say something ironic, what is the truth that is resonating within us that is causing us to be uncomfortable and annoyed when they say what they say? And maybe that's the clue of problems that we should be willing to fix. But unfortunately, no one is willing to step up to the plate. In part because the people that could, they're looking to leave because they're not confident that we could actually solve our problems. They rather go somewhere else and deal with someone else's problems. How many people want to say Trump is a bad man? And yet, how many people still want to go live there, regardless of how bad that man is? Regardless of how many people believe the political talk about the racism in America and the systemic racism, and it's so bad, and cops are so evil, and blah, 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 blah. And did that stop our people from wanting to go there? How many people disagree with Brexit? And while the Conservatives still control the United Kingdom, did that stop our young people from wanting to go there? They rather those problems than our problems, no matter what rhetoric you put in their face, because at least there is a real place. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the daily review, and then hopefully we'll have the SP later on today. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WESN. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
All right, something something doesn't look right with the police. Ironic, given the fact that one could argue something didn't look right with the police, specifically police executive, when this whole thing with the commissioner of police happened. But we haven't necessarily seen the investigation progress per se, but the drama continues, I guess, in some way to unfold. And now there are, I guess you could say, it's very interesting because the various reports don't necessarily paint quite a clear enough picture in the sense of how they present the minor details and how they frame it. There's subtle differences that are enough to make me kind of wonder. And in part, there's certain unspoken things or unconfirmed parts of this story. It's very interesting. It's also, to some extent, concerning in the sense of this is the opposite of transparency, although some of these things, I guess you could say, to what extent are they unsubstantiated accusations? In fact, the accusations themselves, one of the first things that came out to me was it seems as though, oh, there's another leak coming out of a high-profile investigation, which I believe may or may not be connected to the earlier Christopher investigation. Or not. That's the thing. One of the daily newspapers, one of their stories on it, I think maybe came out before that link could be made, or they didn't necessarily want to make that link at all. How did the media know of these things? Where are these leaks coming from? There lies the next question. And that in and of itself is a catch-22 for me, because on one hand, leaks coming out to the police executive with regards to what's going on, this is not something that we've necessarily seen before outside of the SSA case. That's interesting. And to some extent, organizations like the TTPS should not have leaks. Technically, they're bad. Technically, we're not supposed to look at them and say, yes, yes, more leaks. The thing is, they are also one of the few things we have for transparency. This is the thing about whistleblowing. You don't get a get-out-of-jail-free card depending on what law you break in order to blow the whistle and how you do so. You still have to face the consequences for your actions. The whole point of a noble whistleblower is one doing so understanding the consequences and not shying away from them, not wanting their fame and their 15 minutes under the spotlight and whatever rewards they could garner. No, 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 no. It's for doing the right thing, and doing the right thing also is that, look, we can't just condone every and anybody breaking certain security laws just for the sake of it, because then now, all of a sudden, the leaks will get out of control. But again, it's a catch-22. To some extent, because of the lack of transparency with regards to high-profile matters, I find myself wanting to both encourage and discourage this behavior. But it's law-breaking to some extent. Some of these things should not be so easily put out to the public. Now, there is a conspiracy theory as to why the initial arrest of the commissioner of police, the press was so readily available to cover it on the same day in real time. I wonder who wanted that publicity. I wonder who stood to gain from that. But we won't necessarily go there. Those who might come to their own theory, maybe it might be in line with mine. I don't know how true it is. I don't want to say it. But now we've reached the point where, I mean, I guess there's an allegation that is significant enough that the current acting commissioner of police basically, at least it's framed by one media house, had to confirm, no. A situation in the past that involved DCP Martin has been dealt with. Or sorry, in this case, it might even be the current acting deputy commissioner, or both. Basically, they had to say, she will continue, Suzette Martin will not have to deal with any removal of responsibilities with regards to the investigation into the Commissioner of Police and the 2 sniper rifles, or with regards to a position as DCP Intelligence and Investigations. And this is an accusation of perverting the course of justice in 2023, which from what I understand was basically advising an officer with regards to how to deal with evidence. With firearm-related investigations. One of the things about this SSA case is that it's centered around firearms and FULs and misappropriation of firearms. But also, there are further controversies with regards to FULs, particularly private FULs and gun dealers in TNT, and how the government tried to frame things with regards to the behavior of firearms dealers, of certain purchases and deals and transactions, and the amount of material purchased, rounds of ammunition, with, in that case, little to no context as to why that was a bad thing. They just gave us a big number and said, ooh, big number, implying something bad, no context as to why it's bad. Brent Thomas essentially, potentially, allegedly kidnapped from a foreign country. That country has acknowledged they didn't do the right thing. So I really don't know exactly what we're trying to appeal, what we're trying to defend here. But let's just point out the fact that that whole scenario, all of a sudden, it's not as though the government is like, woo, let's defend this situation. Now, to what extent, who's culpable, we have no idea. But why is it that now it seems that Suzette Martin is, to some extent, the commissioner is at the center of FUL controversies because she ain't signing no FUL for nobody. And seemingly went after low-hanging fruit that really didn't make a difference with the gun crime in the country, and it made you wonder, does she really understand what's going on in the country? Because her agenda does not seem to line up with reality. And now we have DCP Martin, the officer that arrested her, who also seemingly is at the center of various FUL controversial cases. What's going on? When the public sees these things and sees that potentially now DCP Martin may have had another thing that may be considered questionable behavior, at best, first of all, trust and confidence, right? Let's also note that how often do we hear from DCP Martin again? What we hear about the earlier case is that they keep going back to DPP, and it seems as though DPP is still telling them, hey, what are you doing here? We don't hear from DCP Martin much anymore. I mean, there's some irony in all of this, right? Because the arrest started off hot and sweaty, and then all of a sudden, things simmered down. Ground to a halt, maybe. And now, part of the question is, wait, you don't even know how to handle an investigation that is sensitive like this? Well, no wonder we don't arrest any criminal masterminds or gang leaders or drug lords. We don't know how to do these high-profile things. All we know how to do is to get weed off the streets. We can't even get the guns without an SOE, and even with the SOE, how much guns is it? The police aren't just the people to deal with the gangs. They're also the people technically to safeguard our democracy. They're the, from any serious law breaking. They are also that front line of defense. We don't have any other criminal investigative body. Well, we do have, oh God, I can't even remember the people that looked into Inez Gate 3 times and came back 3 times and said nothing to see here. Yeah, I guess to some degree, maybe we need to look at them like how we look at the PSB and wonder the effectiveness of these bodies. Although to some extent, how much power do they really have? Trust and confidence, the faith that things can be even done. That's where we've reached with the police service now, unfortunately. Yes, there are pockets of good news and good results. But on the whole, given the murder detection rate, given to how this situation was handled, the Brent Thomas situation was handled, FUL situations were handled, how any sort of anti-gang activity is being handled, interdiction of guns and the seizure of illegal firearms in this country, and the capacity to get real narcotics, not just the weed, well, we have to ask. Ironically, DCP Martin, her whole bureau, what's wrong? Why can't it seem that the job just can't be done? Maybe when you phrase it that way, you start to really understand the gravity of the situation. The job seemingly can't be done, regardless of who sits in the chair of Commissioner of Police. Is it all Layla's fault? To what degree did McDonald Jacob have a hand in it? Did the rest of the current executive have a hand in it? To what degree was Gary Griffith successful or not successful? To what degree was it systemic? We have no idea. All we know is that the results imply that we just seem to be unable to get the job done. So now, this whole thing with DCP Martin and whatever else she may have been potentially accused of by another officer, tampering with an investigation, blah, 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 tampering with a witness, or whoever else may have done, all it does is have the public have more questions. What's going on? Why are we getting so much high-end bad news and no high-end good news? The bad news is the commissioner's been arrested. The deputy commissioner has been accused of this. This deputy commissioner was promoted after doing something that the nation of Barbados said was an issue. Those are some of the bad news. Look how high-end it is. What's the good news? Oh, well, robbery interdicted. Home invasion stopped. You know? Pest intercepted by police ends up dead because he conveniently opened fire on the police. That's as high as the good news gets. The good news includes no shot caller. All right. All right. It's a hell of a topic to end on because it might put my guests in the fire, but we don't necessarily have time. The next story, I need more time to ventilate it, so I don't want to start it now. We have our media ambassador from the TTPS, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome him and continue on with the conversation. Stay tuned to Talk About WES, and we'll be right back after this.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
And I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have 2. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to himself. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have 2 of the 3 species of anteaters right here.
And we're back here on talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small alongside our TTPS Media Ambassador, ASP Arun. Welcome back once again.
Thank you. Good day.
Yes,
good to see you and your viewers.
I apologize of what I have put the ASP after my last segment. Hopefully people do not think less of him. Some of those things well, on some level, just does not have the information to speak about anyway. He's not there as part of the executive, and he's not responsible for their decisions and shouldn't speak for them anyway. But you are here to speak to us about something because, of course, one of the good things that perhaps to some extent our callers don't utilize enough is the fact that the media ambassadors actually do a lot of work with clarifying certain things and bringing certain topics to the fore. I just saw the DCP, I think it was acting. It might have been the new acting DCP or the acting commissioner having to come out recently to reiterate what you said, I think, last week with regards to, hey, don't bring firearms or FETs. And this is one of those things where, I mean, I understand the information isn't always distributed, but some of these things like Facebook Marketplace and don't go to some shady area to buy a car and don't take a firearm to a FET, they might seem obvious to us, but, you know, this is just don't knock the police for repeatedly having the same message over and over in some of these cases at the very least. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, citizens want the commissioner to trust them enough to issue firearms and firearm users license. And the responsible thing to do is not mix alcohol and firearms together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, we want persons to be as responsible as possible. Leave your firearms at home in the safe, or you leave it at the nearest police station, and you can retrieve your firearms after. So when you go into fets, alcohol and firearms do not mix. And may not necessarily be you drinking, it may be the other partygoers drinking, and this is where the altercations and the confrontations may happen, and then it ends badly for everybody.
Yeah, that just one thing that came up quick. You could be sober, but you're in a chaotic situation, and if you have a firearm, that's still a recipe for something going wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, persons may be sober-minded and responsible in their thinking, and it shouldn't fall upon you. But then things might happen immediately that cause you to make rash decisions. I mean, that'd be the best decision at the time. And you might be easily attacked by a person who might be under the influence as opposed. So you're at home for your own safety, you're conducting business, you're not using the firearm for your own protection or that of your family, but you had an issue arose, and then you made a rash decision and you use the firearm unnecessarily. So it's better not to have it mix the firearm and the alcohol.
Also, there's police on location at these places.
Course,
so
at feds and whatnot, private security and fire officers and police officers.
you have the gun at home because you can't have a cop outside your house 24/7. But there is a cop outside. There are multiple cops outside the FET for the entire duration of the FET.
Yeah, both inside and outside the FET.
All right, so what else do you have for us today?
Well, I mean, carnival safety on a whole. We're talking about persons gathering and moving around during the carnival period. We have people going to Tobago, we have people going to different fets. There are a number of fets all over Trinidad and Tobago right now. And we want persons to be responsible in how they operate. If you're moving with persons, stick with them. Don't linger, don't stray away from the pack, as so to say, so that you don't become a target easily. You want to make yourself less of a target because of the criminality, especially at this time of the year, during the Christmas carnival period. So you might be an option for the criminal because you became vulnerable. So as much as possible, stick to the pack, be responsible in how you operate. Text, WhatsApp, message persons, let them know where you're going to be, let them know the vehicle you're traveling in, let them know who you're going to be with and whatnot. So it's very important that you take as much safety precautions as possible. If you park somewhere, I saw someone come out and indicate that they went to a fete recently and the driver refused to take them back to their vehicle, and they had to walk a 20-minute walk to their vehicle, which was parked along a loading roadway. Don't even take that chance. It's better you have waited on the transport at the particular time. So apparently the driver didn't want to leave before the fete ended. So he wanted to wait till the fete ended and take up as much passengers as possible to take back to the location, shuttle them to the location where they were parked.
I mean, that is penny pinching, boy.
And well, the thing is, the person making the complaint is a woman.
Yes.
And worse yet, in the sense that you are more vulnerable and you could easily be victimized because she ended up taking the option of walking along a lonely path to her vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's 20 minutes away, anything could have happened. It's better you take the chance and wait.
Was the shuttle a car or a bus?
I don't know. She didn't indicate. I suspect it's a bus because she spoke about he wasn't ready to move with.
Yeah.
And I think it was a bus. She may have indicated. I just didn't pick up.
I mean, I can understand the amount of gas you're going to use and you're thinking it's inefficient and all that, but I'll just say this, right? Shout out to QRC Fete Royale. I remember we went to that, right? Some of us from the studio, and the only fete I went to that year. And the point is, me and one of our peers, one of my co-workers, we left a little early.
Yeah.
And the shuttle, like, it took some time. We had to wait to get the shuttle, but at no point did they say, oh, no, the shuttle can't go.
Right.
And the shuttle basically, it was a bus. It was a full bus.
Right.
It took the two of us. I can't remember if they took anybody else, but at best it was 4 people. And we're not talking like a panel van maxi, right, that might, 12 people or whatever. We're talking like a full bus, right?
Right.
And that was the service. They took us to where we need to go to get to our cars, you know, so appreciate them for that, because I guess we didn't even think about it with regards to safety at the time, to be honest. We were just thinking about convenience.
Right.
But now more so, I could imagine, because it would have been a similar walk for us to get to where we had to get back to the cars.
The young lady was very concerned about getting back to her vehicle and being shuttled there. And The driver didn't want to hear anything. Apparently, he refused to take her. And she opted, instead of waiting the 45 minutes for everybody else to leave the fete, she opted to walk. And I think that was a dangerous decision to have made. She made it nonetheless.
It was in the middle of the night, I assume.
It was at around 11:15 in the night.
Where? Oh.
Yeah. But she didn't indicate the fete, though.
But did she, what geographical location?
She didn't indicate.
She didn't indicate.
No. So in that sense, we're asking patrons and persons to be very careful. Hopefully she would have had somebody with her, but that didn't work out that way. But in terms of us partying, we should go together.
Was this like an official complaint? Sorry, maybe not official, but was this, was she attempting to complain about the situation to get a resolution, or was this, she was
No, I think she was highlighting it on media, social media.
Because the reason why I say that is, look, at the end of the day, while I don't, hopefully we don't turn into a society where we order hot coffee and we spill it on ourselves and then we sue the McDonald's, right? Like, hopefully that doesn't happen. That famous case, which I still can't believe that happened. Oh, Your Honor, the coffee was too hot. Well, what? Are we supposed to serve cold coffee? Like, but I don't want it to get so complainant and litigious, right? But we have to be willing to call out things so that the public could hold businesses to account, because to some extent, now, I don't know if there was a fine print, but I would like to think, particularly now, you know, for us, two guys, yes, our feet are hurting, but two guys, you know, what, last year or the year before, if they don't want to send a shuttle for us, I mean, I might have been pissed, but I'm not thinking, oh, this is not safe.
Right.
A young lady, on the other hand, like, businesses, at the very least, the businesses who are willing to be forward-thinking, right?
Yeah.
And look to meet these needs, although that's a business that we could all trust and support, because they're meeting us halfway, because they're showing that we're not just, I guess you could say, we're not just cattle to earn money off of.
Yeah, well,
put it one way.
maybe, and hopefully the organizers may think otherwise when arranging these
it could have been the arrangement of how
yeah. So it could have been a better arranged that persons who wanted to leave the fete early could be shuttled to their vehicle.
That's the thing. Or at least have like an alternative, a car on standby. One of the fete promoters maybe, or one of the staff members. I don't know to what extent professionally you need to have a certain accreditation to transport people. But you know, maybe you could speak to the police, I assume, and kind of figure that out. Like, don't just, we have one arrangement and we kind of hope it fits, and then you can't respond with some degree of flexibility.
And she did speak about the lighting conditions on the way to her vehicle, which was dark. I mean, hopefully where she parked was lit well, and that is one thing we should take into consideration. Where we park, the surroundings, the kind of persons that are around, if it's properly populated, if there are video cameras around, the persons that you might look suspicious to you, you may not want to park there. You might want to get better parking. You might want to get paid parking. I don't know why Trinidadians don't like to pay for parking. It's safer. It's more secure. You have less to worry about. Less.
Especially if it's like $20.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what it is now. I remember when.
I think
when I used to go to 51, I used to. Now it's Balazi House 2, right? Unofficially, that's what I call it. The Taj Mahal massive structure. But that used to be a parking lot. And that used to be a parking lot that you could have paid to park your car. And well, you know that it's safe there. There's security there, and it's lit enough there. It's close enough to the venue, you know. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna fight up parking in the road. Well, just go there and park my car. Even if I go early, at the time I think it was $20. Like that's not killing me. That's like one drink. I could survive with one less drink.
That is Blaze. Is it Blaze? The Money Club?
No, well, now. No, but I'm talking way back then.
Oh, you're talking way, okay.
Yeah, because there's a building there now, right? But before, when it was just a parking lot, you know, that's what I used to do back then.
So it's important. It's very important. As you talk about the parking, it's very important that wherever you're going to this fete, it doesn't make sense. You're going to lose your assets. Like your vehicle, somebody breaks into your vehicle to steal.
Yeah, one of the things with a family member of mine, and I think it happened to me when I went to Tobago and was using their vehicle. Sometimes they don't break in the car to steal the car. Sometimes they break in the car to steal whatever they could find in the car.
The radio, the maybe a bag, you left a bag unattended in the vehicle. They just break in the vehicle just to check the bag, and they break in the vehicle at the worst location, the little small triangle on the end of the door, and that's very difficult to get back. You might have to buy a whole door just to get back then.
Or I mean, just the inconvenience of they smash the window.
Yeah.
Because I think that happened to my family member.
And then recently what we saw with some fetes and events around Port of Spain is like they're breaking open your bonnet to steal your battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That did happen to me on the avenue. It wasn't a fete or anything. I was just on the avenue. I'm not entirely sure how they got into the car, but they got into the bonnet and they got the battery out.
Yeah.
So that was a whole other experience there.
Yeah, and maybe the organizers of the avenue who have all these businesses on the avenue might want to consider having a car park somewhere and shuttling people, and the car park is much more safe. The patrons could pay to use the car park, and they're shuttled across the avenue.
I mean, as much as first of all, I don't know what the price of a car park would be now.
Yeah.
Right? But second of all, as much as I was going to do it, I agree with you. I'm pretty sure most strangers would be like, I ain't paying for no parking on the avenue. It's the avenue, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? Although, to be fair, I don't know where you would be able to get a car park now on the avenue. The one location that could have been a car park is now a whole food square thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know.
I mean, we have to think outside the box. There's the Crawford Stadium has a lot of parking. I mean, that's the end. That's at the end. Yeah, but we have a shuttle service. So you can have a shuttle service.
See, I mean...
So somebody could think about this.
This is Trinidad. We have an implementation deficit problem, right? And that's not, like to be fair to the TTPS, it's not that we go to TTPS and you're the only thing that can't do anything right. No, there's a lot of things in this country that are just not done right, and including the private sector. The problem with the avenue is, unfortunately, is so many small businesses, right? That to make that arrangement, that might almost have to be the city of Port of Spain, but they don't really have much of a budget.
Yeah.
And I'll spare you being part of that conversation.
Yeah, but I don't think the problem is the avenue, the parking on the avenue. I think it's on the outskirts.
Yes, because there's not enough road of avenue to park on for the.
So you have the side roads and whatnot. Recently, also, I wanted to highlight that you spoke about marketplace earlier, and you know it still persists to be a problem for the TTPS. And what we recognized recently, I think this was in the Morva district, where a lady sold, let's say, I think it was a cell phone. And in selling the cell phone, she legitimately sold the cell phone, but all the money she collected, I think it was about $4,000, all were counterfeit.
Oh!
Yeah. So it was about $4,000 counterfeit.
Oh.
And the thing is, she didn't recognize that all the money, all the currency had the same serial number.
Right.
So that's one thing you can look out for.
Wow.
That, yeah. So when you're looking for counterfeit, you know, you have the bill check, the blue light that you could use to check the bills. Another thing, the window. There's a window on the bill itself, a small little window on the bill, and it did not have the $100 mark on the bill.
Okay.
So these are things to look out for.
I'll just say this. I have another friend. He and his wife, they do a sushi delivery service. And one of my friends who orders from him, he just does a bank transfer. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to wonder if now people...
Yeah,
listen,
cashless.
I am an old dinosaur. As much as people think I'm a young man, I still like to go into the bank. I'm not up with... My mother is more e-savvy than me when it comes to these things, believe it or not. But the point is, you want to do this marketplace transaction, this kind of, you know, person-to-person, cash... This is 2025.
Yeah.
We all say we have a crime problem. Why walk around
with that amount of
cash? And I mean, I guess I say this. It's not that I have never been a part of a transaction like that, but it's few and far between, right?
Yeah. You have to be careful who you trust with that kind of money.
Yeah.
So you might be coming to meet people or going to meet persons that you trust or you're familiar with. So you might take the chance.
Yes.
But then there are persons you're not familiar with, you don't know, but you're walking with $20,000, $30,000 in cash to conduct a transaction, when you could simply, as you said, use online services and apps on your phone to do the transfer.
I'll say this. This is where China is ahead of us.
I think other countries, even Africa, in Africa there is an app that they use. I think they message, they share or they transfer credit as opposed to funds. So in a particular town.
Yeah, so there's... So in a way, you have access to the credit, but the transaction still has like a bit of a delay so that, you know, if any funny business goes on, it can,
right. So, and it's a lot easier than transferring cash. So what they have their cell phones and they transfer. So even in the common marketplace, they transfer.
In China, you could do that. You could pay things with your cell phone, and then you could even transfer money, cell phone to cell phone.
We're talking about even the coconut vendors, the doubles
vendors. Yes.
So we could start to employ those services. I mean, I know people they have conspiracy theories about the cashless transactions, but I think it does have its benefits.
The irony of having an autocratic government that, you know, boards no law breaking at all, it's actually kind of easy to trust that. With us here, with, you know, the trust actually is not with regards to the law. The trust actually starts off with, well, what happened when the cell phone signal, because it's wireless, right? When it's not good and you run into a problem, we still haven't figured out links in some physical locations. So imagine a cell phone. But security-wise, you know, at some point, we potentially should have the infrastructure to do it. And
yeah, with that limit, there should be a limit on how much you could transfer via.
I mean, I think I don't know if there's a limit in China, but yeah, that's fine. It's just that the infrastructure of it, do we have it to start up? Maybe we do. If we
don't. I don't think we have the infrastructure as yet. I think it's something that somebody should look into.
I mean, in theory, at least in the cities, we should be able to do it.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. But at the very least, if you wanted to buy a car, we should have the capacity to have an app. Your mobile data should be enough to do, like, we ain't reached the point of you're buying a bottle of water, you're buying a little something from a street vendor. But for something like that, you should be able to, we should have this already, and people should consider doing this. And if you want to sell also, you should consider doing this. The official banking apps get transfers, electronic transfers of money, because that is scary with regards to $4,000 counterfeit bills.
Yeah, she didn't recognize that.
And does she have a receipt?
Yeah, she does, but yeah, it should be easy for the police to deal with it. But I spoke to the investigator, and he said that it was so real, it looked so real that he himself would have gotten caught with the money.
Right, but my thing is, you're going to use counterfeit bills, but still leave a paper trail to be tracked. That's when you have selective skills as a criminal. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, and we also spoke about in terms of safety, persons patronizing bars and clubs and fetes and whatnot. They should be careful as to drinks that they're drinking. Persons might spike the drink with alcohol or even narcotics or drugs to get them in a position that they would take advantage of them. And people need to be careful of that, because it still exists, it still happens, and especially to young people.
Yeah.
So we want you all to take very much care in the drinks that you're purchasing and receiving from other patrons.
And also young people who are somewhat less experienced, right? They're even easier prey, I would imagine, for something like this.
Yeah, and even those who are not prey but want to experiment with these drugs, I think it's a bad idea. We all know it's a bad idea to experiment with drugs, especially in a private, a public-private setting where people could take advantage of you all. It's illegal to use most of these drugs, and we implore people to stop using them, especially young people.
Do we still have that? Well, I assume there's the phenomenon of young people just want to rebel, right?
Yeah, it still exists.
So
yeah, it doesn't change, and every 100 years when society changes, the same culture will exist.
Yeah, if, let's just say we'll legalize these drugs today, whatever they are, like they'll find something else that's illegal to try and abuse tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines. You can call in, have your say. Yeah, there's a lot maybe that you might want to ask with regards to the hot topic on the police executive, but there are other things that you can't ask the media ambassador. He's here to clarify things that might be practically applicable in your everyday life. So feel free to ask that and more when we come back. Stay tuned. This is Talking About Others, WESN. We'll be right back up.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
We're back here. I'm talking about WSN, the content capital. Yes, we are going, well, I don't know to what extent are we running towards Carnival. Is the train barreling towards Carnival? But Carnival is coming. It's a thing. 2025. I am less incentivized to take part in it given everything that has happened. And the fact that, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Everything has just gotten way too expensive. But you know what? For some people, this is the time when you free up yourselves. TTPS is just trying to say, free up yourself responsibly. And we're not talking about, don't mix a couple drinks and drive. We're going a little bit further now with regards to your own safety and security. It's nice to be nice, but not everybody is nice. Now, we'll open the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewer. You can call in and have your say. Of course, there's a lot of topics. I didn't necessarily go into the whole DCP Martin accusations in any great detail. I myself, the way it's been reported, it might be difficult to understand. I don't know to what extent the ESP could speak about that even, because that's a whole next kettle of fish. But you could call in and ask him other things as well. This is one of the things that actually we kind of hope that you do take advantage of the resource if you have any questions with regards to the law and whatever situation that you may have experienced, found yourself in. A police interaction, an interaction with a neighbor, an interaction with another driver, an interaction with a business, something where you have questions with regards to your rights and what you can and cannot do. Because that's one of the problems. This is one of the reasons why I am not an advocate of stand your ground, because individual self-defense could then lead to vigilantism, and that's a whole other kettle of fish, right?
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. I just want to assure members of the public also that we would be out conducting, as usual, roadblocks, especially during the SOE. We still have the powers under the SOE to detain you. So we want you all to be careful whilst outside on the roadways. And, when you're driving your vehicle, we would be doing roadblocks and we'll be doing road checks. I have a business partner, friend. He's a businessman. And he told me recently, he said he keeps getting pulled over on roadblocks. Mm-hmm. And they keep asking him weird questions. And he said he felt like he was being targeted. I said, well, is it the same people on the same roadblock? He said, no, it's different times, different. I said, well, you have to understand too that the officers on the roadblock would hardly target you because they're targeting everybody. They're basically looking at everybody. So he felt targeted, and so I had to assure him, listen, the guys on the roadblock are not the ones you have to worry about. Those are the officers that are out there, and anybody they come across, they would pull over and what.
And the key point is those different officers at different roadblocks,
correct,
right? Yeah. If it's the same officer at the same roadblock, that'd be different. I know one case of that. I haven't got any details. I'm waiting on my partner to send me that, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. Maybe it's resolved itself on its own. We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Good morning to the officer.
Good day, good day.
I have a recurrent issue every day in my mind. I hope that the officer can answer it. Now, we have all these issues, basic issues that they deal with every day. I'm not seeing not one single, and we all know it has corruption, Mm-hmm. Not one single thing about all these breaches of money missing, $1 billion here, thing. We stop talking about the boat now. So much of big, high cost areas that we know. I mean, $500 billion spent over the last 10 years, and we still have plenty issues that that wasn't addressed. I am not going into detail, but I want to hear this officer tell me today, when we're going to see somebody being charged for corruption? When? And have a happy Valentine, my boy.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said in programs before, you always see the TTPS functioning. We are always arresting officers, and they are innocent until proven guilty, for corruption and corruption-related issues.
Yeah, I think there was a case that got a resolution maybe last week, actually.
Yeah, so you're always seeing the TTPS function in that regard. The thing is that in other institutions and businesses and whatnot, you don't have persons coming out and speaking or reporting the corruption. So in the TTPS, you have officers, like you would have seen recently, an officer coming out and writing a report against a senior officer. You will have that in the TTPS.
Yeah.
So the TTPS functions like that. There are junior officers that write reports on senior officers, and senior officers who deal with junior officers when it comes to corruption, and their persons are arrested.
All right, stick a fork in that, because, I mean, I know where you're going, but we do have a Remo waiting on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Yeah, morning.
Stick a pin. We'll come back to that. Morning, Remo.
Good day, good day.
Morning, morning.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to tie in something from yesterday with today.
Uh-huh.
No, yesterday you talk about the squatters, right?
Yeah. That was technically a rerun, so you'll need to potentially even remind me to what I said. But I think I generally remember what I did say.
Right. You was talking about the squatting in the country.
Yes.
And when I used to call previously, I used to tell if the government had a serious land use policy. Because I myself, where I live in here 41 years now. I have a deed of comfort. And I am still waiting on the bureaucracy to get a lease. If the government is claiming that they don't have no money and money short and pressure, why is it they don't come and lease out these lands if they don't have no use for it? Lease it out to people for housing. And furthermore, as the officer is there, when they went to remove these people recently here, you saw armed contingent of police officers there. To do what? It's housing we're talking about. It's like you have non-nationals coming in our country and doing the same thing, and you're not seeing the police with that veracity trying to remove them. You go Sawa and you go see for yourself. Understand what I'm saying? These are not the same people who the politicians going to come to ask for vote for them. I have lost I lost total confidence, but I lost plenty in the police service. Because I've seen somebody being suspended with, and at the end of the day, we the taxpayers got to foot that bill now. It's time in this country when people make mistakes in office, they have to be held accountable and not the taxpayers. Our money could go to better use. Thank you.
Okay. But I mean,
Thanks, caller.
Yeah, he's speaking about procedural justice when you talk about different locations and treating everybody across the board the same way and whatnot. What would happen in a case where officers are dealing with a land dispute, or they're engaging persons who are illegally squatting and they are hired by the state?
Yes.
Because they are hired by the state, whether they're paying or not. The state could come to the TTPS and say, listen, we want assistance to have officers
kind of
present.
almost like if it's a private entity. This is not like an official police function per se.
No, it's not. So we would engage for the purposes of preserving law and order.
Right.
We would assist the government services like land and surveys to go and eject persons from illegally occupied property. But the thing is, whether they're armed or not, they must be equipped to deal with any situation that might arise. So yes, you would see officers heavily armed and whatnot, but it's because of the situation that they have to be prepared for any situation that might arise.
Okay, stick up in on that.
Yeah.
Because we have San Fernando back. I don't know if there's another San Fernando caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, SPR.
Good day.
You know, as I said last week, Sean, to you, we really need to start a review all these, update these laws. Too many, it seems as if wrongdoers have too many rights in this country. that same issue with the squatting is one example. What I really wanted to speak about this morning is that stand your ground legislation. I think there is merit in that. I think there is merit in that. There is. It not necessarily has to be that I have a firearm and somebody come on my property. Not everybody is going to have a firearm, but the property owners should have a little more leeway to defend their property and their person on what is theirs. Too many times in this country, when and the SPRO knows this, when somebody comes on your property, and if there's an altercation, you have to answer so many questions from the police, and it's time that has to change. People just can't decide. I come in on your property, and then I am playing defense. If somebody invades my property, I shouldn't be playing defense. I should be playing offense. And this is one of the things that we need to change. I know he may not be able to speak on this, but this is something I think the police need to advocate to the authorities, the police hierarchy, to the authorities, that these are some of the things that we need to change in this country. That stand your ground legislation has merit, and it's something that should be discussed. Have a good day, Sean, and the SPRO.
Thank you, brother. Ironically, I can't disagree with that despite how I framed my initial statements earlier. So I'll try to clarify that if we have the time, but I'll have to stick a pin in that because we have Kuva on the line. Good morning, caller, on here.
Hi, pleasant good morning to the panel.
Morning.
Good day. My thing is, the two former commissioners, their demise from the service were plagued with some form of corruption in respect to FUL.
Which two?
Last commissioner. Right? FUL. Why we just can't move away from a commissioner having the responsibility or having the permission to grant an FUL and copy countries like Jamaica, where you have a firearm license authority. In that way, it would eliminate corruption if you're looking at an individual level. Yeah, and that will eliminate most of our problems. Because our last two problems, Gary Griffith, Erla Christopher, was some form of, let me say, misbehavior where FUL are concerned. Thank you.
I will just maybe, for clarification, I will try to clarify what you said. It will eliminate issues arising from power being concentrated in one individual and the corruption and how easy it is to potentially corrupt a situation because it's concentrated in one individual, because it'll spread out to a whole authority. It won't necessarily mean that it's immune to corruption.
No, it
right?
doesn't mean that.
That you could still get corruption.
Like with anything, yes. But Trinidadians, they find it very difficult to trust any situation, anybody.
Well, I mean, in this case, directly.
I think in any case, but
the
thing with the firearm user's license is that we have to be we have to understand it's not our right to bear arms in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a privilege, and it's up to the Commissioner of Police to grant that privilege for a firearm user's license. So until the law changes, then you have the only option is the Commissioner of Police. So in one sense, one of the callers did mention, we need to change the legislation, but that's a totally different issue as opposed to the granting of it. And we need to understand that this person, whoever is in charge, has to be satisfied beyond any reasonable doubt that you are disciplined and responsible enough to hold a firearm. And even when you look at the stand your ground legislation or so-called legislation that they speak about, would it be are Trinidadians disciplined and responsible enough not to stand their grounds for irrelevant issues?
Yeah, I think the problem is, politically, it seems as though it's pushing to arm the population, whereas the caller was saying, no, we need to clarify, maybe beef up, maybe set in stone certain rights with regards to what victims could do to defend themselves and not necessarily be held liable.
But is he speaking from a sense of being a victim in a burglary in a robbery, home invasion,
or robbery,
or as opposed to him and his neighbor falling out, and the neighbor comes into his yard to have a dispute.
Well, in his case, I think it's the former, not the latter, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, it goes back to, he didn't necessarily say open up the laws and just make it easy for homeowners to whatever.
Yeah, but when you speak about standing ground legislation, that's what you're speaking about in any case. That's what you're speaking about.
Let's take a pin in that. We do have Shagonas waiting. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I see squatting came up again.
Yeah.
When it came up before, I tried to get in, but I couldn't get in. I heard one of your callers talk about squatters' rights. And what a lot of people don't know is that what a squatter right is if you actually squatted already, then you are supposed to be served a notice, and you can query that before a magistrate to give reasons why. If you are in the process of squatting, then you can use what they call self-help. You could go in and move the people. Now, one of the things they're not saying again, although I heard a guy just mention it this morning, is the question of the right to occupy, letter of comfort. These people who have been in the news recently, I have seen nowhere where any of them said they had a letter of comfort.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why that is important. But what you say is true. The government agencies is not doing the work. Because you have to get a letter of comfort. That was before the year 2000. And why it is they're still allowing people to squat. And what they are doing about those people. That is my contribution, if it is of any use, unless you have any questions or queries.
No, that is the million-dollar question. Why? I think I have a possible answer to the question.
No, I have told you that before.
Yeah.
Our government enforce no laws.
Yep.
If you enforce all your laws, you don't have these problems.
But I think, Professor, it's a little bit worse in this case. I feel as though in some cases they turn a blind eye because they just kind of want to ignore it. But in this case, I think it's an active decision of not wanting to deal with it because they don't have the political will to deal with it. Because they don't want to be seen
What
as...
do they have the political will to deal with?
They want to be popular with the people.
That the government have the political will
But
to deal with. The government.
They are afraid of it being framed as though they kind of oppressing poor people or victimizing poor people. When the fact of the matter is, I mean, just look at illegal immigration in the States.
Do you know they have millionaires who are squatting?
Right. Listen, certain illegal activities, we kind of now in this day and age, we kind of don't understand that they're technically still illegal and it's law breaking and it should not be allowed. And we don't understand when the authorities, even when the authorities do try to enforce the law, populations make up a fuss about it. In America, it was illegal immigration. In TNT, it's squatting.
So that is why you have government.
Yeah, but again, this is the problem. They're too scared.
Why? But then why are they going to government? That is why long ago, politicians didn't used to get paid. It was people who want to give back to the country, people who succeed. Right?
Professor, the problem is, it isn't just the salary they get that's the problem. It's also the money that we don't see.
Contribute.
The money that we don't see, yeah?
The only people who have prospered in this country since independence is the politicians. They didn't used to get paid, now they get the highest pay. etc.
I would also argue that from the politicians, we have a whole host of millionaires that were never going to be millionaires otherwise. And that's all I'll say about that. That's all I'll say about that. What I mean to say, people associated with politicians, not the politicians themselves. But then in turn, we have to ask ourselves, how do some politicians end up being this rich? They seem richer than their salary, no matter how large their salary is. And that's all I'll say about that right now. Professor, thank you for the contribution.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing with squatting, I guess you could say. Because I see it with illegal immigration in the States, where you even had somebody, a member of Congress, try to tell a border security agent illegal immigrants did nothing wrong, and the border security agent had to just sit there and like he didn't even necessarily know what to say. It's in the name. Illegal immigrant. It's in the name, right? And with squatters, and this has been something that I've seen like maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago in the press, whether it was private lands or state lands. Even with the airport situation, where in some cases people did get compensated, but then they didn't move. And what did they use the money for? Well, the implication is some of those households did not use the money to move, and they use the money, so now they don't have money to move, and they want to make it the state's problem. Like, it's a complex situation, but it could be emotionally oversimplified, and then people kind of run with that.
But in this case, the squatters were squatting where?
I can't remember where. What I do remember is the fact that I think the media looked back on Google Images, Google Maps, to see that they haven't been squatting for that long, to say that they have a case to say, because one of the people is claiming that they've been living there for years, 20 years or whatever long period of time. And they're like, nah, you might have gotten away with 7, right? It was like some of these structures might have been built in 2023. Right. I think it was like 2018 to 2023 was the range for most of them. Yeah. Right? So that kind of time frame, I think to the first caller's point, you can't just give away state land willy-nilly. That goes to a whole host of other considerations, right? For people to have housing, because what about planning for agricultural projects, industrial projects, the airport land? You're not necessarily going to build the airport immediately. That land should have kept in reserve for the eventual new airport, because you can't shut down a terminal and build over it, because then the airport isn't functioning. You have to build a new terminal, right?
So, and the only option they had was to remove them, or?
What, the airport land?
No, right now, the location where the squatting occurred.
I'm not entirely sure what the options were, but generally speaking, this might be cruel, but I think to some extent, okay, now it goes into what you want to do with squatting, right? If you leave them there, then they'll have rights to the land. What if the state needs the land? Then you have to buy them out for the land, right? And then, now here's the other question. You're not squatting, I'm not squatting. Why do they deserve state land for no money, right? What about the rest of the population? Because technically speaking, state land means that we all own the land to some degree, right? Yeah. It's an asset for the country and for all of the population. Right. So this is the thing that people don't seem to understand. Now, if it was a family, right, and we talk about your own personal assets, most people ain't gonna be that altruistic. Similar to immigration, it's fine if the state has to deal with illegal immigrants. But how many people are like, all right, let's house these illegal immigrants ourselves? They need a home, right? They need a country, let's take them in. What about homeless people? They need a home too. How many people take homeless people in? Well, we don't do it, right? When we kind of think about it in the macro, it's easy to say, well, the state has to deal with all of these things and they need to be generous. But we don't realize, we think because it's not coming out of our pocket, it's not costing us anything.
I think one of the solutions one of the callers made was that they apply for the state land lease.
You see, problem is, in most cases, they don't have the money to pay for it, otherwise they would have gotten land.
Well,
some cases.
From my experience, the lease is very cheap.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I remember in St. Anne's, we went on a report, I think it was alleged squatting, but the owner of the land indicated that they were paying a lease of $99 a year or some kind of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, to some extent now, again, therein lies another question. Is it right for it to be cheap? Is it wrong for it to be cheap? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, right? Now, in some cases, the reason why I can't say that should be applied in a blanket way is like with the airport. Like, you can't, certain areas of land you shouldn't do that for, but other areas maybe.
And the lease was for 100 years.
And again,
at $99.
Like, should it be that long for that price? Maybe it could be 50 years at $99 as opposed to, because at some point now, because I don't have a problem if you help people start, but it can't be a perpetual thing for like 2 to 3 generations where you're just being given a semi-free ride, right? Because they have other poor people that don't get those opportunities because they're trying to do the right thing and not take advantage of the system. Right. And there's not enough land to go around, I would imagine, to just give it all away, because then the state won't have nothing much left to do things with.
Well, I think there's enough land.
Then now we'll have to make road. There's land, doesn't have utilities, doesn't have infrastructure, doesn't have roads,
so
right?
So we'll have to develop the land.
Right, it has more money again, which I don't necessarily mind. It's just that we can't do it all at once. Okay. Right? And just back to the stand your ground thing, That is a nuanced discussion, and I think my issue with it was very simple. The way how it was framed by the politics, which is what the ASP is afraid of, this should not be a free-for-all to just, you know, unload the matic or whatever the stupid expression was that was used on a political platform. Because it takes the conversation into the realm of irresponsible. That's the problem. Also, I don't think you could have a firearms authority, you could have the commissioner, you could have 16 commissioners with a firearms units for each of them. We ain't gonna have enough manpower to process the amount of firearms if we want to say, because that's the crime-fighting proposition of one political party, we'll just put a gun in everybody's hands. How do you process that?
Well, in some jurisdictions, you're allowed a firearm for your house alone. So you're not allowed to leave the house.
I would not do that here.
No, I'm not saying that. So it's
No. That's one of those cases where you'll give the people an inch and they'll take like 16 miles and they'll go off the rails real fast.
Right.
Look at what marijuana. Look at marijuana, right? It's legal to go, and they're still smuggling marijuana, right?
Yes.
They're taking advantage of marijuana.
I'm glad you brought up. I want to remind people it's still illegal to smoke marijuana
publicly
in a public, especially close to a school. Yesterday, I was filling up my vehicle in El Socorro, and a young man walked across the road from the bar to the main road, where he was in close vicinity at the school, but he didn't light the marijuana. So you can see he had a marijuana cigarette in his hand. He put it in his mouth, and he did not light the marijuana cigarette.
Right.
And I just want to caution persons, still illegal to smoke marijuana close to a public school. It's called trafficking. You could be charged for it. He's lucky he didn't light that marijuana cigarette on the government road near the school.
But it's also illegal. You're in a bar, you're not supposed to do it. Right?
No, you're not supposed to smoke in a public place.
Right.
Yeah.
And it happens. You're saying. And we kind of just let it happen.
And on the government main road, it wasn't inside his private premises or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, I can see where this is. I agree with Mr. San Fernando. We need the laws to be cleaned up. In part because you give them an inch, they will take a mile, or 2, or 16, right? And you know, tricky daddians, right? That's all I'll say about that. Thanks to all of the calls for calling in. We reached a point where we couldn't hit everything that was being discussed, so hopefully we were able to speak about enough things to your satisfaction. Of course, you could always call in if you want to have a follow-up next week. Monday is usually when ASP Arun is here. ASP Arun, thank you for joining me once again.
No problem.
All right, folks. This is Talking About the WSN. Make today a good day, as Mr. Shaw would always say. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe. And it's nice to be nice with everyone you meet. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell.